Many high achievers, overachievers would never say they have anxiety. They would say they have ambition. These are women who have achieved phenomenal things in their lives because they never stop. They never slow down, but they're using a part of their brain that I call their achievement brain.
What happens when mom is doing it all?
Motherhood is inherently unpredictable. The way we've learned to get things done by doing more is the thing that gets in the way. It's totally counterproductive to be an overachiever. It holds us back. And you have achieved this much, this far from an activated nervous system.
How do you even access some of that?
Well, you access it by asking yourself.
My guest today is Kate Kripke. She's a maternal mental health specialist, and for over 20 years, she's helped thousands of high-achieving, career-driven new moms move out of postpartum and ongoing anxiety into calm, confidence, and deep connection with their babies and young children without giving up their careers that they've worked so hard for. She's also the host of the Motherhood Uncut podcast, and I get to spend some time with her today. Thanks for being here, Kate.
Thanks, Jim. Psyched to be here with you.
Yeah, I'm excited because you solve a huge problem. And, women need as much support, especially moms, as much support as they can possibly get these days. So tell me a little bit about the work that you do, and let's start there.
Yeah. So maybe I'll start by just saying I am a mom of two. My daughters are now 16 and 19. The work I do is really in helping those women who are so used to being successful and getting things done, and then their world flips upside down when they become a mother. 1 in 5, if not more, new moms are going to struggle with pretty significant anxiety, guilt, overwhelm, and it interferes with their ability to live their lives and do the work they love, and it also interferes with that connection and secure attachment. So I like to think of it as helping the whole family thrive, but really I am helping those women really have the experience of motherhood that they've wanted a lifetime.
One of the things that I've heard you say is that what helped these successful women have the success that they had, that something switches when they're now moms. It's like they can't rely on the skills or the grit and I'm just going to try harder and figure it out kind of approach that helped them have that success in their careers, but now isn't working in motherhood. What is it about motherhood that sort of throws a monkey wrench into the whole thing?
Well, I think for most of us, and I'll put myself in that category, let's talk about sort of overachieving for a minute.
Yeah.
Right? Those of us who have moved through life being taught directly or indirectly when we were young that messiness or uncertainty or unpredictability or, God forbid, feeling emotions are something that we need to fix and problem solve. We've gotten really good at that, right? These are women who have achieved phenomenal things in their lives because they never stop. They never slow down. They problem solve. They're doing all these things, but they're using a part of their brain that I call their achievement brain. Motherhood is inherently unpredictable and uncertain and full of emotion. And one of the things I hear over and over and over from the women that I work with is, I just want to be more present. But we cannot be more present with our little humans if we can't, or our nervous systems aren't ready to slow down. If we're not willing or ready to feel that immense feelings that any parent is going to feel. So I think it's really about, the way we've learned to get things done by doing more is the thing that gets in the way of feeling the way we want to feel as moms and having that relationship with our kids. So it's interesting, right? It's like the thing that's worked so well suddenly gets in the way.
Yeah. And so where does that like what happens with the superwoman myth, right? It's like we hear this idea of I'm just going to bring that same overachievingness to motherhood.
Women tend to do motherhood. They think, what do I need to do to be a good mom? That's that achievement brain, right? And it's not the brain that's focused on this moment. That's the brain that's thinking about what needs to happen for the moment I want later. And the super mom, I don't know how in the world of mothers you are, but the super mom, when we imagine her, am I allowed to swear on this podcast?
Sure, of course.
She's getting every fucking thing done all the time. I use that word on purpose because it's annoying. It's that thing, but I'm going to do it and I'm going to get it done. And it just is literally the roadblock to having the experience in motherhood that our kids need and that we want. So it's really counterintuitive to shift that off because we kind of want to do it all, but we don't have to do it all. That's part of it too.
Yeah. So what happens when the mom is doing it all? Is there, is she compromising? Like, what is she compromising by having that drive?
She's compromising her connection with her child. So the term we use in my world is secure attachment. What we know is that attachment is required for healthy emotional, psychological, and mental development for little humans. It's about the connection, and the connection happens in the moment. So if I'm running around doing, I'm actually not right there in the moment. And I think the reason it's counterintuitive is because there's actually so much to do in motherhood, especially if you're a working mom, especially if you're also building a career. So we really have to shift the way we're approaching motherhood in general to access the thing that we want most. And the thing we want most is also the thing that scares us the most because it's slowing down and it's pausing and it's actually feeling. But many of us have learned we've gotten really good at not feeling.
I saw this thing on the internet. Maybe you've seen like the memes going around where they're like, what's the most unhinged thing a therapist has ever told you? Yeah. And the comment sections are amazing. And I saw this one and she said, my therapist told me that my entire personality is a coping strategy. And I was like, oh my God, this is speaking to me. I think I get it.
100%. 100%. And you know what's so interesting about motherhood or parenthood in general is that we can't approach this brand new kind of relationship we've never had before with a child. I think you're a parent. Right?
Yeah.
So you know what I'm talking about without thinking back to how we were parented. Mm-hmm. Whether that was, on whatever end of that extreme, right? We can't do that without remembering. And so if we're not paying attention, we will bring those coping mechanisms that we've learned into that relationship. And a lot of that lives under the surface. We don't even realize we're making the choices or having the beliefs that we have. And so it is coping. It's coping. And it's also generational trauma and relationship trauma. And it doesn't mean we had horrible parents. It just means maybe they weren't equipped to give us what we needed.
I remember when my son was born, and especially like that first year, there was just like so much stuff that came up. And I would tell my friends, I was like you have beliefs about shit that you don't even know about until all of a sudden you're in an argument with your wife about whether or not your kid needs to wear socks. Like that was like a whole thing. She was Polish. She's my ex-wife. The ex-wife was Polish. And so it was like, the kid needs socks all the time. I'm like, who cares about socks? But like now we're arguing about whether or not we put socks on the kid.
Which is, of course, not what you're arguing about.
Yeah, 1,000%. Yeah.
We like to blame it on those socks, not the socks. Yeah.
But it's just like the way that like bringing in that new life just like stirs up the pot was like really jarring and it's overwhelming.
You know what's really interesting, Jim? Let me see if I can say this in a way that is clear because it can get complicated. But with the women I work with, we talk about a really important concept, which is what I believe to be true about myself is what I will believe to be true about my child. And what I believe to be true about my child is what they will believe is true about themselves. And that's that generational passing down of, unhelpful coping, right? So for me, when my now 19-year-old was a baby and I had horrible postpartum anxiety, I was raised by two very high achieving, but very anxious parents. Little side note, my mom passed away 9 years ago from a stress related incident. And she was like a frickin' powerhouse in the world of law and mediation and arbitration in New York City in the 80s and 90s. I mean, she was doing incredible things. Last time I saw her, she told me, we were driving to the airport. She said, Kate, I've been running for class president every day of my life. And what was amazing about that is she won every day. People loved her. She was doing amazing things. But inside, she was kind of quietly killing herself, right? So, and her sort of version of what I'm talking about was, I'm not enough. I really believe that she had to achieve all these things, which many of us high achieving overachievers do. We get our sense of self from what we're achieving. And then, of course, she raised a daughter who inevitably was somehow going to believe I'm not enough if I'm not doing everything my mom is doing all the time. That kind of morphed for me into I'm not okay. I had like horrible panic attacks and hypochondria and social situations. I was so anxious. I just had this like deep sense that I was not okay. And then I had this beautiful baby girl who was like as high as you can get on the APGAR score. And I was convinced she was not okay. Everything. She wasn't looking at me enough. She wasn't eating enough. She wasn't, gaining enough weight. Everything was coming from that, like, there is something wrong with her. And it was never about her. Like, it was always about me. And so I had to learn how to shift that undercurrent of belief I had about myself so that I could approach her from a grounded, steady, observant, curious place versus that fear-based turns into micromanaging and making sure your kid is always wearing socks. You know what I mean? It's not about the freaking socks. It's about what's going to happen if they're not wearing the socks. So I think there's a really interesting generational dynamic to this as well in parenting.
Where does your dad fit into the picture?
Oh, my dad, who just, I got a little teary. He just passed away a few months ago, which, by the way, is really bizarre to be on the with no parents, right? My dad, also anxious, but was sort of the chronic, also a lawyer, but the chronic, like, not enoughness and everything. So he taught me very unintentionally, I should say, like many women out there, I had on paper a stellar childhood, right? Like everything that I bring into motherhood that contributed to my own anxiety as a new mom was energetic. It was an exchange of nervous systems. It wasn't about what was happening on the outside. And my dad's emotions were terrifying to me. He was a hypochondriac. He was angry all the time. He would like beat his leg. I remember my dad walking around the house when I was young, like calling himself an idiot.
Wow.
Right? Like self-talk, but like outside, not just in his head, like you're an idiot, right? Like, and I think that he, in many ways made me fearful of emotion as a kid because emotion itself felt so scary. And he wanted nothing more than for me to have a happy, healthy, successful life. But again, you bring into motherhood for me a sense of I'm not okay, I'm not enough. I have to be like class president for me to be okay. And feeling any emotion other than happiness is a problem. And that is a recipe for postpartum anxiety. So I think I had these two excessive achievers. My dad's was a little more like, I'm forever needing to prove myself, but I'm going to call myself, stupid in the meantime. My mom forever needing to prove herself, but like winning the gold stars and like feeling good for a minute until she went for the next star. I had that to come into motherhood with.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think that's uncommon either.
What is it about like motherhood? Is it that sort of brings this stuff up? Is it the hormonal shift? Is it this like blank slate? Is it this like subconscious belief of like, I want to be better than my parents or do better than that tells you my upbringing, right? Got to do a little better every time.
Totally.
Bill Burr's got this great bit where he's like, if I could just like be a little less worse than my parents, like we're moving in the right direction.
And there's truth to that.
But what is it about motherhood that just sort of like can be sort of like triggering?
Great question. All of the above. So let's talk about hormones just for 2 seconds. And I don't need to go into a whole lecture about hormones, but the hormone shift that women experience going from pregnancy to postpartum is intense and insane. And those hormones will have a direct impact in our brain chemistry, as will lack of sleep, right? So these two things that people walk around saying are the cause of anxiety in new motherhood are important things to consider. However, I believe that the real cause is all of the uncertainty and unpredictability and messiness that leads to a pretty big emotional experience for any human on this planet. I don't care if you're running a if you're in a C-suite or have written 27 books or you're a pro athlete, doesn't matter. There is immense discomfort in early motherhood. And I think what actually really tips it for women and then has the anxiety last for a long time is that those women are used to fixing and problem solving and achieving their way through that. And you cannot do that with a little human who's a skin bag of unpredictable emotion. So if you don't know what to do in those moments when it's right here in front of you, right? Because moms want to be present with their kids. If you don't know what to do to stay present, if being present means I'm going to feel a lot and I'm going to have to sit with not knowing the answer or not knowing what's happening or what's going to happen the next second, if I don't know how to do that, I'm going to develop a lot of anxiety. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. And that's in my own journey, that's been a huge source of growth, right? Of like making that shift from how do I figure this out? Like we joke in my family, like if we were going to talk to my dad about anything, we kind of had to have like a presentation.
Yes.
You know, I was like, if you were going to speak, you had to know exactly what you were going to say and how it was going to end.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like being around people that just like talk.
Totally.
Always is a little triggering for me because it's like, do you not think before you speak? Like I would have never in my household like said anything without knowing kind of the beats, right?
I think what I'm taking,
Yeah.
you're saying, is that there is a way in which we enter parenthood with a roadmap of what's acceptable or not acceptable, okay or not okay. And we can live in our, I don't know if this is what you were saying, but we can live in our brains, what am I supposed to do in this moment? And think we're doing the right things, but really parenthood is about what's happening in our nervous system.
Yeah. So yeah, that's it. It was like, it's that journey from being like, I have to know where this is going to go to just being okay with like losing your train of thought, being okay with just like sitting and being like, okay, I'm here. Like this is messy.
Yeah. And if you were taught directly or indirectly as a child that wasn't safe, your nervous system is going to freak out in that moment. That's why like my favorite thing about doing the work I do with my clients is helping them understand that there is nothing wrong with them. That is your nervous system doing its job, right? When we start to panic and we lose our train of thought, or we're, getting caught up in the million things we need to do and we're having a hard time being present with our child, that's not because we're not good moms or good parents. That's not because there's something wrong with us and we're incapable. That's because our nervous system is literally doing what it's designed to do. So the work has to start with getting brave, but getting really curious about what is the operating system, so to speak, underneath that. Like, what are the beliefs I come into parenthood with about myself or being a parent in general? What do I believe is okay and not okay? What do I believe is good and bad? What do I believe is, it's all the rational stuff. Because that's where the anxiety is coming from. I'm not feeling anxious because my baby's crying. I'm feeling anxious because what I'm telling myself about my baby crying. Many high achievers, overachievers, like high functioning folks are not even asking that question. They don't know the difference between those two things.
Yeah. I remember I had in my acupuncture practice, I had this patient who was having chronic migraines, and she was a young mom with 3 kids. And it struck me when I would talk to her, because the migraine is bad. Migraines are terrible. They're bad.
Terrible.
But the thing that was making it so much worse for her was the story that she was making around what it means, what kind of mother she was, right? She couldn't pick her kids up some days, had to be in a dark room, couldn't play. And that whole narrative of I'm a shit mom, I'm a terrible mom, I'm not there with my kids, like compounded exponentially, however bad the physical migraine was.
Can I shift the conversation for a minute with that?
Yeah.
So I think it's useful to talk about that, like what we are told it means to be a good mom. Because there are a lot of myths out there about what our children actually need from us. I'm going to make a huge generalization here, which is that women tend to be givers more than receivers. And I am not speaking to every woman out there, but it tends to be the way it is. And of course, men, you get my point.
Yeah.
But we're taught that being a good mom means that we're giving and giving and giving and giving. You hear that like, we're sacrificing ourselves.
Yeah.
That statement makes me want to scream. And I think for the women I work with leading up to motherhood, these are women who want to be mothers. They love their children. They want to be good mothers. But they also have other things in their life that they're committed to and wanting to pursue. And there becomes a conflict of like, okay, but good moms are home to tuck their kids in every night. Good moms are the ones who are always soothing their children when they're sad. Good moms are the ones that are around for their baby's first steps. Good moms are the ones who are, putting their kids first all the time. My client does not want to leave her job. I want to make a distinction. If you want to be a stay-at-home mom, please. I think that is amazing. But the women I work with would not make good stay-at-home moms because there's something else. There's a fire in their belly outside of that. And I think there is this story we tell ourselves, back to your client, about what it means to be a good parent, a good mother, and what makes a bad mother, that actually misses the point of connection. Because what our kids need most, and actually it's the same thing that you and I both need, is to feel seen, heard, and understood. And that starts when our babies are infants. Our mothers and their children share a nervous system. By design. I mean, that's just sort of what helps us keep our kids safe when they're little. Although now in 2026, our nervous system is escalated for a million things that they weren't escalated for when it was like life was simple. But what can happen is that if our baby is crying, which we always do, and we start to freak out because our baby is crying, we don't know why, and we don't have the answer. What should I do? What's the right thing to do? This is the inside of the brain. Our nervous system stays escalated, which keeps our baby's nervous system escalated. Mm. And really what all a little human needs at that moment is to know that their distress is okay. That's it. But we're so into trying to fix the distress that we miss the actual point of connection. And that is by far more important than the perfect sleep routine. Mm-hmm. By far more important than what who your kids, what you're feeding them, whether you're breastfeeding or bottle feeding. Far more important than, I have an amazing woman I'm working with right now who is a very high level government position, and her kid is 2. And she is on a regular basis when she's home, she works a lot, when she's home with him, teaching him vocabulary, making sure she's reading the right books.
Yeah.
And is so stressed about whether or not she's doing it right or wrong that there's no connection. So I kind of went off on a tangent, Jen, but I feel so deeply passionate about that piece because of the myths. What we're told it means to be a good mom, we're actually getting in our own way of what our kids really need.
Yeah, and what you said there makes a lot of sense where, if I'm hearing it right, the baby just needs to know that it's okay, even in distress. But if the mom, I'll speak for the dads for a moment, the dads too, right? If my wiring is I'm not okay when I'm in distress, then how could I possibly give that to the baby?
That's it. And now we go to I'm not going to be okay unless my baby's distress ends. So now I'm putting the responsibility for how I'm doing onto my child.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, while I work with most people from 0 to 5, I have mothers come to me when their kids are school-aged, teenagers. And by that point, this is much harder to shift because their children are feeling responsible for that and then rebelling in ways that not just your typical, let's rebel, but you know what I mean, right? It's really problematic. And I think there is, again, what I believe about myself, I'll believe about my child. If I don't believe my distress is okay, there's no way I'm going to believe my kid's distress is okay. Mm-hmm. And distress or emotion is just a part of being human, whether you're a 1-minute-old human or wise humans like us.
Yeah. My sister is this typical overachiever. She was valedictorian of her law school, went to Cornell. She's amazing. She's the oldest. We were always compared to, what Becky was doing. She's had a really nice career as a lawyer, and she's got 2 kids.
Yeah.
And her daughter, when she was I don't know, like 10 or 11, at school, they were like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And her daughter said, I'm going to be a lawyer, but I'm going to be a lawyer that's able to pick my kid up from school. You know, it's like dig at her mom.
Really, I'm with her. That's how I felt. Yeah.
Yeah, and my sister was just like, she was like, well, good luck being a broke, you know, not very good lawyer if you're picking your kid up from school. Which is just that, like, you know, I saw that as this kind of like, you know, reflex of, you know, protecting all of, you know, her feelings of, you know, and that guilt that's there. I'm sure I was just like, oh, I don't pick up my kid as much as I should. Getting back to like the good mom myth and what does that look like?
Let me share a really little short story about what it was like to be raised by my mom. Because I would have said that I had, I would have said I had a secure attachment with my mom, which I did not have.
No.
When we have secure attachment with our parents, it's very unlikely we're going to develop clinical levels of depression or anxiety. Okay. Many things can lead to depression and anxiety. And if we have a secure attachment, it's unlikely, if we have a healthy brain in general, that we're going to end up with clinical levels of depression and anxiety. But my mom worked all the time. And when she was with me, she would overcompensate. She would I learned, you know, after she had passed away, and I kind of did a lot of my own work around this, that what my mom needed more than anything was for me to feel like she was a good mom. She felt like she was so guilty for working so much that the only way she could feel good enough in mothering is if I told her she was a good mom. So when she came home, she would overcompensate, you know, like, I mean, we had boundaries, but, you know, just like nothing else mattered except me, which felt really freaking good.
Yeah.
But when she was gone, I would panic. It was so all or nothing that I had no space in between. If she was with me, I was okay. If she was not with me, I was not okay. So she flip-flopped between being at work and, you know, I do think, side note, that there's a way to be really successful at work and not be overachieving. I don't think we have to overachieve to be successful. That's another podcast interview. But I think she would be so busy and to excess that when she came home, she would excess it, you know, give me too much. So then I was totally unstable. I mean, I had panic attacks and so much anxiety as a kid. But I think that's what happens. We feel so guilty that we overcompensate, and it's just swinging. We swing from extreme to extreme, which is exhausting for us.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about overachieving. So in my acupuncture practice, I used to work at this spa in Miami. It was like this high-end spa. And so we get a lot of New Yorkers. Yeah. New Yorkers are New Yorkers.
I am a New Yorker.
Yeah.
I grew up in New York.
Yeah. I used to live, I left there and I actually moved to Brooklyn. I lived there for like 6 years.
That's where I grew up.
Oh, we're in Brooklyn.
Brooklyn Heights.
Okay. I was in Greenpoint.
Yeah.
Practice was in Williamsburg.
Yeah. Very hip now. Not so hip in the 70s and 80s, but very hip now.
I heard that when I lived there, someone said that the law that New York has, where like once you're in a cab and the cabbie has to take you wherever you want to go, happened because cabs didn't want to take people to Williamsburg.
Yeah, I believe it.
Yeah.
It's changed so much.
It's so different now. Yeah. I like the Apple store, like Whole Foods down the street. But anyway, so people would come they'd come down, these New Yorkers would come down to Miami and they'd come for rest and relaxation. I would talk to them about stress management, all this stuff. And there was this fear. Sometimes they would voice it. Sometimes it was just, you could feel it in the room of, if I relax, if I'm present, if I have a regulated nervous system, I'm not going to be as productive at work.
Yes. You want to know the science behind it?
Yeah.
The neuroscience?
Please. Yeah. Let's nerd out.
Let's nerd out. I love neuroscience. This is the curse of the overachiever, right? Because we have told ourselves that rest and slowing down is dangerous. And so we don't do that. And we take on more and we do. And then we also talk badly to ourselves if we feel like we're being lazy or not doing enough. That disconnect, that critical self-talk turns on our sympathetic nervous system, fight, flight, or freeze, which fuels many high achievers, overachievers would never say they have anxiety. They would say they have ambition.
Yeah, 100%.
But what's really happening is that their nervous system is on a heightened alert, which feels like it gives them energy to do more, but it also shuts down, you probably know all this, the executive functioning, our frontal cortex. So we can't both be in fight, flight, or freeze and frontal cortex at the same time. So we think we're getting more done, but we're doing it from a fear-based place, which turns off the parts of our brain that are required for learning, taking in new information, connecting, all those things that we actually need, creativity, curiosity, all those things that we need to do to actually grow and achieve and succeed. So it's totally counterproductive from a neuroscience perspective to be an overachiever. It holds us back. And one of the other things I love saying to the women I work with is, dang, you have achieved this much, this far from an activated nervous system place. Just wait till you figure out how to regulate your nervous system on the inside, regardless of what's happening around you. Like, you are going to fly professionally.
You must hear crazy aha moments. Like, what's that like for some of your clients when that first starts to like click into place? Not the final outcome, but that I'm really like that aha moment of like, oh shit, like the first time they feel that nervous system downregulate.
I mean, it's a lot of relief. I think a lot of my clients are proud of their identity of a high achiever, but they don't actually want to live that way anymore. It's so exhausting. I mean, burnout is like a medical condition at that point. So, but let's talk about the chronic overwhelm. People do not want to live that way. So I think there's something so relieving about the idea that they don't have to give up their desire for excellence, that they don't have to settle with, in my work, there's this term good enough, which I actually really believe in, but we have to actually talk about what it really means, because people who are high achievers won't settle for good enough. It's not okay. But there's a difference between striving for excellence in a way that allows you to also feel regulated and rested and deeply connected to the things in your life and the people that matter, that feels good. And I think it's just so different from this achievement brain, again, that says there's no other option to go, but I don't want to keep going. And so where does that leave me? And I think it's like a total, it's a pause. It's a safe pause where their nervous system doesn't start freaking out when they slow down. But
Yeah. I remember for me, I had a good friend of mine, and he used to say, I'd hear him give talks and stuff. And he'd say, if all you did in life was bring a good mood wherever you go, that's a good life. I tear up thinking about it, because it's like, I heard him say it maybe 3 or 4 times, and I just watched my Stanford graduate brain go like, that's bullshit. Like, it's not about a good mood. Like, you have to do this, you got to do this, you got to achieve this, you got to be like this, and all of this kind of like all of that wiring. And then one day he said it, and I heard it, and it was just like, oh, if I can just bring a good mood. And what I love about that is it's like simple. It's like you kind of know if you're bringing a good mood or not. It's like there's still some achievement. Like you could distort it, but like the idea is like you don't have to be like a particular way. It's not about achieving something. It's just about being mindful of like, what's the impact you're having on people.
Right. So let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
What's your definition of a good mood? Like for you.
Yeah.
I say that and that clicks. Like,
yeah.
What does that actually mean to you?
It's like it's contributing without like expectation of like getting anything in return. Like not having to, it's not like I'm trying to achieve a particular thing other than just like, what can I bring? It's like a party and you're like, what can I bring? Nachos, salsa, guac, like what can I bring? And it's like, oh, I'm going to contribute a good mood. And that's it. People will interact however they interact with whatever I say and whatever I do. But if at the end of the day, I can be like, I brought a good mood, it's like, that's nice. It feels good.
So from the perspective of my work, I would call that connection.
Mm-hmm.
I would call that an internal steadiness that allows you to be present with what's happening in the moment and to connect. And I asked you the question because a lot of people think a good mood means being happy. I'm in a good, woo, Jen's here. Look at what a good mood he's in, right? And again, maybe that is the case for you sometimes, but I think there's something that happens, a tagline, something I say all the time is the feelings are never the problem. So you could wake up someday and you could be having a very human, normal response to the conditions of the planet right now, or what's happening in the world around you, or your wife is going through something that's not easy, or a parent, or right? And you are feeling, if you're healthy, you're feeling the normal human responses to those things. And you can show up and move through your day with total acceptance that you can feel those things and still be okay, because I think that's the crux. Oh, I can feel the reality of the pain of our planet or people who are suffering. Oh, I can feel my wife's struggle right now. I can be in connection with those things and still trust that I'm okay and be present with those things and present in the moment and show up from that place. That's secure attachment.
Yeah.
And that's what our kids need from us. They don't need us to be happy all the time. They don't need us to feel like, I've got super mom energy and I can, do the PTA and drop my kids off from school and to have all the meetings and have the perfect birthday party and make all my homemade. They do not need that. They just need us to be in your definition of a good mood.
Yeah.
And it also feels better in here.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, it's like, it's not, it drops all the performative aspect. All the performance is gone and you're just like, yeah.
You're like, here I am. I got this.
Yeah. Yeah. Because that, it's keeping up with the Joneses, right? Like that performance and especially as a new parent, all of that, the comparison game is,
and it's just
a lot.
Especially bad for moms.
Yeah.
I don't know what happens in the dad world.
It's not like
but it is freaking intense.
Yeah. So how do you, where do you even begin with your moms? What does that look like?
Well, I think it starts with being willing to ask the question, how do I feel? Because on paper, we talked about on paper, many of the women I work with on paper have that perfect life.
Mm-hmm.
They don't feel the way they want to feel. So when I work on my own life and with the women I work with, we're really using that feeling in the body as a gauge for what choices am I making. So first we have to ask a question, because many of those people aren't even pausing to say, how do I really feel in my life? At the very beginning, we have to identify what the beliefs are that we bring into motherhood with us about ourselves, about good mothering, about our children, our perceived beliefs about who our children should be. We have to start there. So there's a lot of great advice out there about self-care tips and parenting tips. There's a lot about parenting. I'm telling you, you could follow the best parent coach in the world. And if you're doing exactly what they say from an activated nervous system, none of it's going to work. Your kid is not going to sleep. They're not going to breastfeed. Their tantrums aren't going to end, right? Mm-hmm. So we have to start, I think, with that undercurrent. Like, what am I actually telling myself about myself and who I need to be successful? What is a good mom? What am I expecting from my child? We got to start there.
How do you, so much of that stuff, it seems like is unspoken. It's like that subconscious operating system, right? Like, how do you even access some of that?
Well, you access it by asking yourself, how do I want to feel in this season of my life as a mom? And again, for my clients as a working mom, how do I want to feel? And then the question would be, what would I need to believe about myself in order to access that feeling? And if most people, generalization, are going to say, I want to feel present. I want to feel confident. I want to feel inspired and motivated. And it makes me feel a little teary, all the things. It's all the work I've done. I do on a daily basis still, right? I want to feel present, grounded. Okay, what would I need to believe about myself in order to access that feeling? Well, I need to believe I was okay. I would need to believe I was enough. I would need to believe, there's a lot of women move through life with this feeling of lack of worthiness and lack of value. I'd need to believe that I was worthy of feeling those things and valuable. And this is the point where many of my clients will, all the yeah buts will come up. The conditioning, not facts, the stories. And that's how we get in there, is to say, well, what were you told? Like, I'm okay if, right? That was mine. Like, I'm okay if what? Everyone around me is happy. I'm okay if I'm winning class president every day. I'm enough if. And that's where we get in that process of saying, well, okay, is it possible that that's a belief and not a fact? And we just need that 1% possibility. And if someone says, no, it's not possible, then I can't help. Most of us want to believe that's possible. So we'll start there.
Yeah. I remember one of the sort of breakthroughs I had in my own journey was like it sounds so trite to say, but that I am enough, like, because I am, not because of what I've done or what I will do. And it's like, I don't know, it's like I minimize it now. It's just like, oh, it's such a cliche. But like when I felt it, when it became a new level of knowing, again, it was another of those like pivotal moments in my life that downshifted. And it's all this, like, I'm vibing with you and your ideal clients. I'm not a mother, obviously, but like it's that overachiever language, right? Of just like, oh, I was just like, I remember just like my shoulders slumped and I was like, fuck.
Yeah.
Because I saw how much I've been driven to do and to achieve and to be the thing, you know, as opposed to just being.
So many of us are really smart. Like the women I work with are very smart. So they might know that intellectually. I don't need to earn my worth. Like the fact that I love talking about, like, do you know how hard it is to actually be born? Like, what has to happen for you and me to actually come out of the womb in one piece? Like, it is crazy shit what has to happen. So many of us can sort of rationalize and intellectualize, okay, I understand our nervous system doesn't know that yet. So it's catching the nervous system up to that. And our nervous system on every moment of every day is basing safety versus lack of safety on what we've been taught, directly or indirectly. So that I am enough. I am valuable. I had a conversation with a client on a call just this past week where she was talking about this idea of deserving. You know, she realized through this work that she doesn't know if she deserves to feel good, right? She's been so taught that you have to earn your good feelings. You have to work hard in order to take a rest, right?
Sure.
That value doesn't just exist. You have to earn it. And we kind of had a conversation about, like, well, what does the word deserving mean? And she couldn't get out of that cause and effect definition of deserving. I don't even know what the word means in the dictionary, but if we sit with this, I am enough, I am deserving just for being, if we can catch our nervous system up to trusting that it's actually safe to just deserve or to just be enough, I mean, I can feel it in my body right now. Like, my perspective goes from looking through this little tiny cylinder to like, oh my gosh, the world is my oyster. You and I are sitting in this beautiful place with this beautiful horizon. That's what it feels like. It feels like looking at a horizon when we can land back in the just I am, period. It does sound cliche and cheesy, and many people might roll their eye, but it is literally the core in my mind of mental health and well-being, and of how I want to raise my children, to what I want them to believe that about themselves. That's not going to stop them from working hard. That's actually going to fuel them moving in a direction towards making a big impact on this planet.
Yeah. I've been very like keenly aware with my son of like the language that I use and how like I don't sort of drive him in like what I felt like I grew up in a kind of a conditional way. Yes. You know, but it's interesting to watch him thrive. We homeschool him, so he's got like a whole range of opportunities to like follow his interest. And sometimes I look at him and it just like, I can feel this like short circuit of my old programming because it's so different than like how I've done it, like how I was raised. But I love that feeling of having, you know, broken at least part of that generational movement of just saying, okay, like, you know, the end stops with me. And I would imagine that on some level, like your high achievers, they probably feel pretty good when they've started to regulate their nervous system, and they've been able to, I mean, it's like still an achievement, but it's like, they're like, well, that bullshit stopped with me, or I'm tuned into doing it differently.
Yeah, like it's not bad to want to achieve. So we also want to honor that. Like that achievement brain is so useful. It will get in the way of connection. And we all know all the studies out there. We know that the happiest people on the planet are the ones who have connections with other people. The people who are the most successful, like not just in your bank account or what your house looks like, but literally like have that feeling, the feeling of success. They're the ones with the close relationships, the deep relationships. And I think that there is a pride that comes in realizing that we get to set up future generations. I will say to the women who I work with, again, I can feel, if it makes me want to cry, I can say, we are doing this for your grandkids. It feels really good to feel better. It feels really good to step away from that exhausting, spinny brain that's feels like it needs to control everything and is micromanaging and is what a thing and is like, that's exhausting. It feels good in our bodies to feel good, grounded. We are also giving our grandbabies a gift.
Yeah.
Because when we raise our kids to move through the world that way with deep trust in themselves outside of what they're achieving, just inherently, they're going to raise their kids that way. It's my personal opinion of what we need to do to change the world.
Beautiful. That's incredible. So when you think about, let's go back to the nervous system for a minute. When you think about the nervous system, one of the things that sort of strikes me is this high achiever, overachiever ability to just reframe sensation.
Yes.
To minimize and reframe, and you said earlier about like it's not anxiety, it's ambition, or it's like, let's just talk about that reframing. Like, what are some warning signals in particular that a woman listening to this, what is some of that translation that happens?
Well, first of all, I do think, and I'm going to say in our American culture, although again, I know we could spend hours talking about what that even means, but in general, many of us believe that we're supposed to feel happy, that feeling good means feeling happy, right? And I really do, before I dive into your question, want to debunk that, because the definition of mental health and well-being is that I'm willing to feel all of it. I have to be willing to feel the discomfort in order to access the the deeper feelings of joy or motivation or inspiration or connection, all those things, love, right? So I think that we need to really understand that if the people who are walking through on this earth who are really, truly mentally well, they feel plenty of sadness and disappointment and worry and anger and frustration. So I think part of the reason we decide that feeling in our body is motivation instead of something else is because we believe that the something else is bad and the motivation is good. That if I don't feel motivated and instead I feel scared or angry, then there's a problem. And it's the opposite of a problem. It's like, it is what makes us human beings, and it's what connects human beings, right? I mean, I don't know about you, but I've been sitting here for however long we've been talking, and I've had I'm loving this, if you can't tell, like this is my jam. I'm so psyched to be here. But I've had we talked about my mom, and I had moments of waves of sadness, or, I've got a kid who's a freshman in college. You better believe I have moments of feelings of fear because she's making all her choices right now. So we don't want to get stuck in those feelings, because the second part of mental health and well-being is that we have really healthy coping skills to move from unpleasant emotions back to pleasant emotions. But the unpleasant, uncomfortable feelings and emotions are not bad. I may have taken us on a tangent there, but I guess that's just what's coming out of my
Well, it's part of the translation, right? We talked about it's like, what is that? And I imagine like it's got to be super interesting to be in your brain because you've had so much experience and helped so many women over the years that like you're making these you're decoding it on the fly, right? When someone's like, "Oh, I'm ambitious," and you're like, "Oh, I probably know." That probably means you're feeling this thing,
I mean, it's interesting because the question, I mean, one of the reasons I love my work is because I get to model what a secure attachment feels like for someone else. Because what I would say to my client when they said that is sort of the same thing I asked you. If they said, "Oh, I feel so ambitious," I'd be like, "Tell me what that feels like. What does that feel like in your body? What does that word mean to you?" Right? That's how we begin to decode. And often at that part of a conversation, someone will actually be like, "Well, actually, like it feels sort of tight. When I think about ambitious, I kind of feel tight in my chest." And I'll say something like, does that feel good? And they'll be like, "No." And there might be living off this value of like perseverance or commitment, but they're not really the perseverance and commitment that's going to get us somewhere because it quiets our brain, our limbic brain, and turns on our executive functioning. It's the perseverance and it's the like, you cannot stop. That does not feel good in our bodies, right? So I think there's an element of, it won't surprise you at this point to hear that like hard emotions do not scare me. They used to when I was having anxiety and panic attacks. They do not scare me anymore. I find them a deep opportunity for so much curiosity and creativity and connection. And that's what we want to bring to our parenting. We want to bring that, first it has to start with us, as you were saying, and then we want to bring that kind of curiosity to our kid whether it's an infant or a baby or a toddler that's freaking out because they don't have their blue cup or whatever it is, or a school-age kid who someone didn't sit with them at lunch. Like it's the same thing. Or a teenager who's a freshman in college and didn't get invited back to her sorority or whatever the heck it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing. It's really needing to be willing to get curious about the words and the feelings without running away or fixing.
And I've heard you say, I mean, to me, this is like all of this circles going back to parenthood and motherhood, being okay with uncertainty.
100%. We are wired to fear uncertainty. So I also think that's important, right? When I say the emotions are a problem, someone's feeling anxious and I'm like, of course you're feeling anxious. You do not know what's happening in that little human body and brain. Of course you feel anxious. The anxiety is not the problem. The problem is the story about the anxiety or the thing that's happening. So absolutely. I think that there is this uncertainty and unpredictability. And again, we're hardwired. Many of us were raised in families where that actually wasn't safe for us for a myriad of reasons. My dad had horrible panic attacks and a hypochondria went out. And if I didn't really know what was happening for him, of course I was going to have my own panic attack about that because I need my dad to be okay for me to feel like I'm okay. So it always makes sense. Yeah.
And so what is that? Paint the picture for me of like this mom who now is developing this ability to be okay with uncertainty, who's able to be okay with her kid crying and being uncomfortable. How is she different in the world, both at home and I would imagine ultimately at work too?
I love this question because it shifts the perspective from problem to not a problem. So we can say, okay, what if this is not a problem? So let me take a very concrete example that happens for the moms I work with who are in some form of a career. They may even be working from home, but this is going to happen where they pass their child on to a nanny or a childcare provider. And their kid cries, reaches for them. I mean, as a parent, I can feel that in my body, right? We can use that as an opportunity for connection. And what our brains tend to do, what mothers' brains tend to do in that moment is use it as an example of failure or doing something wrong, as a problem. Oh, I'm dropping my kid off or leaving them with a nanny. They're crying for me. I'm doing something wrong. And so we kind of pour kerosene on that fire by trying to fix and to we take 20 more minutes than we need to say goodbye, all that stuff that we can do. If we can see our child's distress as a normal human response to what is happening, my child loves me, she feels comforted when I'm with her, she feels safe in my arms, of course she's going to feel distress when I leave. That is a reflection of love and connection. That is not a reflection of trauma, which I hear. That is not, many of my moms will say, it's so traumatic for my child every time I go to work. We have to redefine that. Is our children going to feel big things when we leave if they love us? Heck yeah, of course. But that becomes this opportunity to connect with our kiddo in that moment. And even if, I'm using words that a baby might not understand, but the energy gets translated. Like, I know I love you too. Of course you're sad I'm leaving. I'm going to do work I love. I'm going to come back. I can't wait to see you at the end of the day. That kind of steady exchange of energy is what builds secure attachment. So it's not the leaving that gets in the way of secure attachment. It's the giving space for the child's feeling and being steady with that feeling that builds it. We can change. There's so many little micro moments like that we can build this thing that we all want, which is like that bond with our kids. And it's not about whether we're leaving our kid with a nanny or being the one to spend our whole day with her child. That make sense?
100%. And then what I'm hearing too is like when you extend that out to then, so they leave the school or the nanny and then they get to work and they feel clean and good about like the drop off and the exchange, that then they're present, they're productive.
So guilt is in essence the feeling we feel when we believe we're breaking some kind of a rule. And a lot of moms will spend all day at work feeling guilty because they believe they should be home with their children. And so if we can redefine like that whole new scenario I just talked about, where actually, again, we all like to feel like good parents, so fine to want to feel like a good parent. But if I had that moment of connection in the departure, I go into work feeling like a good parent. I'm not doing anything wrong. I haven't broken any rules, so to speak. Right?
Yeah.
And in fact, maybe I have learned, because I've done this work, that in order for me to be the kind of mother I want to be for my kids, I have to be pursuing this other work that's so purpose-driven to me and that I love and that uses my brain in a way that I feel really fulfilled by. And by doing that, I'm filling myself up so that when I come home, I have more to give. Now going to work, I'm not breaking any rules. So the whole operating system changes, the whole model changes when we can understand that difficult emotions are not a problem. They're an opportunity for connection.
I'm just getting this image of like, the bucket that just keeps filling and filling and filling, right? It's like the energy just will keep compounding as opposed to that constant like drain and overwhelm and exhaustion and feeling like, I remember when I looked at my kid once and I was just like, please, for the love of God, take a nap.
Yes, of course. By the way, yes, of course.
It's just like, what do we have to do? Like, go to sleep, I remember the first night that we brought him home, I was changing his diaper and I realized that my wife did all the setup. Like, I had no idea where any of the stuff was, right? But she just gave birth. So like, I'm changing the diaper and I'm just like, and he's still crying, right? And I was just like, what do you want? What do you want? I was like, you're cleaned, you're fed, like all the things. And the mother-in-law in the other room heard me and she just started cracking up and was like, this will be a fun ride for you, And it's like, but even still, it's just like, what do you need as opposed to like, who can I be with you, right?
Exactly right. And I think that there is, so one thing I hear or something I hear a lot is this idea of it's like having your heart pulled out and all the guilt when you leave your child in the morning to go to work or a meeting or whatever. And then during the day, you're like, oh, I would rather be with my child because I'm sitting with all this guilt and I can't wait to get home to be with my child. And then within like 2.5 seconds, you're like, I can't wait for my child to go to sleep. Do you know what I mean? There's like this constant feeling of have to and should. And again, without going too deep down the rabbit hole, I think another thing that happens in early motherhood or early parenthood is this experience of lack of agency. Suddenly, I feel like I have no choice and no control. that also is going to turn on our fight, flight, or freeze nervous system, our sympathetic nervous system. So if I feel like I have no choice, I'm going to be engaging with my child from a place of an activated nervous system. And, there's actually very little we can control, right? But I can control, I'm feeling myself get activated. What can I do in this moment to bring myself back down to a state of groundedness? We're going to get activated as parents. Kids are annoying. No offense. Humans are annoying.
Yeah.
So we're going to get activated. That we do not need to be Zen mama and Zen dad. But we do need to know how to get back down to a state of groundedness to really help our nervous system understand the difference between real and perceived threat so that we're not constantly on our heels in everything that we're doing.
Yeah. Do you know Marie Kondo?
Oh, yeah.
I saw this article, this interview. She got a bunch of kids now, and someone's like, "Oh, how's like your house?" She's like, "It's a mess." She's like, "I got kids," and it's like, but having that ability, like I appreciate her honesty there, but also having the ability to adapt and to just be like, "Yeah, this is what's going on right now." Yeah,
it's adaptation, and so many of us are so rigid in our thinking, in our habits, in our behavior, and that rigidity is gonna blow up parenthood. It won't work.
Well, Kate, this has been amazing. Do you have a final message, for these young moms that are overachieving and maybe struggling right now? What do you want them to know?
That it makes sense. Those are probably the people that they may not be using this language, but they're saying, what is wrong with me? There's nothing wrong. There's truly nothing wrong. We just need to access a different part of the brain. And it's the part of the brain that knows that it's okay, that taps into the nervous system and knows that it actually is okay to slow down and feel and be present. They want to slow down and feel and be present, but their achievement brain is on overdrive. And it really is possible.
And what I'm taking away from this conversation is that it's a skill. It's a skill that's developed, and that most people weren't taught how to tap in and have that language and regulate their nervous system and that sort of that life that they want, and that presence and stuff they're a few skills away from being able to transform that.
Yeah, and it's interesting. It is a skill, but I don't know why I've been using this term lately, maybe because I'm on my computer so much. But it really is an operating system.
Yeah.
It's like the operating system that's been working, literally, in many ways until becoming a parent does not work in parenthood. So we just need to update the operating system. We just need a different system to navigate all the uncertainty and unpredictability that happens in this relationship that we're building, in this kind of life when we're, holding this human, which is really freaking intense.
Yeah.
When it's available.
So how can people find you so they can update their operating system?
Thank you for asking. My website, katekripke.com. I have a lot of easy to access information over there. Instagram at Kate Kripke. And I have my own podcast called Motherhood Uncut. And people can find me there. And you can find that anywhere you find your podcasts.
Awesome.
And I will say, I love having conversations with people. So if anyone listening to this or watching this has questions about what we've talked about, or is sort of like, yeah, but really doesn't agree with something, I really do enjoy those conversations. So I invite people to come find me and introduce themselves, and let's learn about each other a bit.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Be sure to check her out. See you next time.
Thank you.